Welcome back to Fed by Fire. I'm your host, Christian Whitlow. Thank you guys for being here. I'm ready to take you on a ride, let me tell you, through some of the darkest, most twisted corners of America. No ads, no interruption, just me, you, and these four walls and these four stories that just keep getting hotter. The deeper we dig, we're going to do a deep dive on each of these in storytelling form, but with real cases that are happening in real courts all around the country. I'm leaning in, painting every scene for you so you can mentally picture it, so you can smell the Texas dust or hear the Miami gunfire or feel the cold steel of a stolen mailbox key and the sense of fear in a Bronx hallway. A quick disclaimer, same as always, if I trip over a name, whether it's a Texas rancher, a Miami local, a California coder, or a Venezuelan street alias, it's zero disrespect. Court papers hit you with names like a buckshot, pronunciation shift depending on who's reading them. And, I'm doing my best live, it's human. But straight up, we don't celebrate any crime here. We're not trying to glamorize or romanticize anything, because crime does have an effect on all the communities that it happens in. Broken neighborhoods where kids hear gunshots instead of crickets. It's real pain for people all around the country, real victims. And we tell these stories so you can see how these scams work and how they collapse and how the feds are finally bringing the hammer down. Education wrapped in fire, so let's burn it. Case 1, the ghost herds of agritame, 220 million vanished into thin air. So close your eyes for a second and imagine wide Texas plains, right at dawn, golden grass swaying, distant, low, real cattle, the smell of dust and diesel, you know what I'm talking about. Now imagine a family rancher, call him Tom, sitting in his kitchen in North Dakota or Missouri, scrolling on his phone, an ad pops up, invest in American beef, own your own cattle. A steady 15 to 32% return. Agritme handles everything. The website looks slick, happy cows smiling, farmers' promises of meat that you can brag about. At the barbecue, Tom sends 50,000, gets photos of tagged steers, supposedly carrying his name. Andy gets monthly updates. Your herd gained 2.3 pounds per day. He says it feels good, feels patriotic, feels safe, and over 2,200 people like Tom did the same between January 2021 and December 2023. The total, more than 220 million, poured in from coast to coast. But those steers, most of them were not real. The money, it didn't buy live animals, it fed a machine, fake profits wired back to early investors so they'd stay quiet. A classic Ponzi scheme that brings people bring in their friends, payroll, trucks, feed bills, massive secret commissions, over $11 million funneled into their inner circle, luxury cars, vacations, private jets on the company card, and real estate. Hundreds of thousands wired straight to property closings. In February 11, 2026, Fort Worth Federal Courthouse grand jury hands down the indictment with 5 names at the center. Jed Wood, operations director in Fort Worth. He's got 3 counts of wire fraud, conspiracy, money laundering, and they say he wired $63,000 to pay off a house like it was clean money. Another guy, Joshua Link, executive director out of Stafford, Missouri. 10 wire fraud counts, conspiracy to money laundering, over $527,000 toward buying land. The problem, he's vanished. FBI Dallas has him on the wanted posters. If you see him, they want to know. Tia Link, his wife, the marketing director in Smith, Missouri. 3 counts of wire fraud, conspiracy, and money laundering tied to the same property deal. Another person, Taylor Bank, a cattle broker from Killdeer, North Dakota, 8 counts of wire fraud, conspiracy, money laundering. He was the one whispering in the farmers' ears at auctions. Roanna Thomas, a financial controller in Arlington, Texas, 6 wire fraud counts, conspiracy and money laundering. The SEC smelled blood first. December 2023, civil suit, asset freeze, receiver steps in by 2024. The receiver tells the judge flat out Ponzi since at least October 2021. Actual cattle inventory, laughable. Fraction of what the books claimed. The arrangements are underway. Tia and Taylor are out on pretrial. Jed and Roanna are due February 25th. Joshua is still on the run. And the max penalties stack brutal. 20 years per count of wire fraud, 10 per count of money laundering. So it could mean decades behind bars for each. This one cuts deep because it wasn't just dollars stolen, it was trust. And that's a lot of handshakes, a lot of deals closing. Now families are second guessing every broker, every contract. Feed stores feel like a slowdown. Equipment dealers feel it. Small towns feel it. And when retirement checks stop coming, red flag checklist, if you ever see something like this, returns too smooth in a market, that's never smooth. Pressure to roll money over fast, photos that look like stock, no invitation to walk the feedlot, demand proof, walk away. If they dodge, take a deep breath. We're just getting started. Let's get into the second case. The Miami Gardens mailbox vampires, stolen keys, forged checks, drugs, and a telegram black market. Now, picture this, a quiet suburban street in Miami Gardens, Florida, around dusk. Blue USPS mailbox on the corner. A guy walks up, glances around, slides in a small metal key into the lock. Click, the door swings open. Inside, he grabs envelopes, bills, paychecks, birthday cards, and that key, a USPS Arrow key. One of the most stolen items in America right now. Worth thousands of dollars on the black market. Because it opens dozens, sometimes hundreds of mailboxes in a single route. From September 2021 to May 2023, 5 locals ran a ring that turned those keys into an ATM. Angel Joe Gonzalez, 28, Evans Neckler, Monsamete, 27, David Gonzalez, 23, Christina Ahaze, 27, Adriana Gelno, 56. They stole these keys, raided the mailboxes, got the checks, scanned the account numbers and the signatures. They bumped the amounts. $200 becomes $2,000, $500 becomes $10,000. Forged endorsements, made fake IDs, deposited them into burner accounts, and they cashed out fast. The side business was H, Blow, Fetty, Molly, packaged and ready to move. On May 3rd, 2023, shots fired at a house shared by Angel, Christina, and Evans in Miami Gardens. Miami Garden PD rolls up, and inside is chaos. $1.7 million in stolen checks and mail stacked like bricks. Personal info, names, social security numbers, addresses from people who obviously never lived there. There were 6 arrow keys, 40 debit and credit cards embossed with strangers' names, piles of blank checks, and 27 cell phones, 6 laptops, 2 iPads, guns, ammo, drugs everywhere. H bricks, Blow, Molly, pills, Fetty. In Angel's Lexus, they even found more Blow, more Fetty, scales, baggies, the whole starter kit, fake cards, and the kicker, Angel and David ran a Telegram group with 2,000 members buying and selling these stolen checks. Like they were basically baseball cards or something. Guilty pleas came down hard. Angel, he took the rap for the stolen mail keys, the money laundering conspiracy, possession with intent to distribute, firearm in furtherance of a drug trafficking organization. Evans got bank fraud, conspiracy, stolen mail keys, drugs, firearm. David got bank fraud, conspiracy, aggravated identity theft, stolen keys. Christina and Adriana, they got bank fraud, aggravated identity theft, and sentencing ranges. Angel and Evans face mandatory 5 years minimum up to life, and the others 2 years minimum up to 30. Part of the DOJ's violent crime initiative in Miami. Feds and locals, they're teaming up just to crush gang-linked violence with, federal hammers. This is one that chills me because, it could be your mailbox, it could be your grandma's social security check, your business's payroll. These error key thefts, exploded after COVID, and USPS reported hundreds lost, billions in fraud. So, lock your mailbox inside, use secure drop slots, go paperless where you can, and watch your statements like a hawk. Case 3, let's get to the next one, the DoorDash Phantom. Alright, 2.5 million in ghost deliveries. Let's shift to the glow of phone screens in San Jose, California. The pandemic peak, DoorDash is booming, everyone's ordering food, drivers hustling, you've seen it everywhere. Five Guys saw opportunity in the code. A man named Mathis Durate, 30, a Brazilian national in Hayward, and another person named Chada Rita, 31, of Newport Beach, and another person named Manaswin Matalota of Irvine, and Tyler Thomas of Botterhorn. And, they built fake customer accounts, fake driver accounts, they used insider access, and someone knew the back end to place these orders that never existed. They assigned them to phantom drivers, then, trick the system into logging hundreds of completed deliveries per order. So DoorDash paid out over $2.5 million and vanished into their pocket. No food moved, no drivers drove, just digital smoke. So they all pleaded guilty, and Judge Beth Lapson Freeman handed the sentences. Mr. Durate got 25 months in prison, 3 years of supervised release with $2.59 million in restitution and $336,000 in forfeiture. He starts his sentence on March 4th. Alright, and the others had to pay the exact same amount of restitution. Another one of his co-defendants only got 12 months, which I guess that's pretty good. And I'm going to be honest, I would tell you the rest, but I would probably butcher their names again. But you get the thing. It's a classic insider tech fraud. Gig platforms are gold mines if you know the weak spots. And DoorDash locked things down after this, but it just reminds us that every app has seams and someone always tries to rip them open. Let's talk about case 4. Anti-trend, the splinter that brought terror to the Bronx. Now lean in close. This one is the heaviest one we're going to talk about tonight, that lingers in your chest long after the fire dies down. So imagine the Bronx at dusk on April 15, 2024, streetlights buzzing to life, the distant rumble of the 2 train overhead, the sharp metallic tang of gunpowder cutting through the warm spring air, and 2 men, John Bayek and Jose Baseball Pena and Adrian Mendoza, are walking, maybe talking low about nothing, but when the shots crack open, the evening, bullets tear through the quiet bodies and they drop hard on the pavement. Blood pooling dark under, the sodium glow. No warning, no mercy, just an echo of gunfire fading into sirens. And that's the scene prosecutors say Yender Meta Irvin Hernandez, known on the streets as Coco or Cocoyedo, and Curlin Netavile Perez Lopez, or Mal, orchestrated a conspiracy turned execution murder in the aid of racketeering, part of a splinter group's brutal bid to hold power. February 2026, the Southern District of New York unseals the S4 superseding indictment, 38 counts, slamming 27 members and associates of the anti-trend, the vicious offshoot of Tren de Aragua, the Venezuelan prison gang that, clawed its way into designated foreign terrorist organization. It started in the shadows of Aragua's, penitentiaries, tattoos inked in blood, hierarchies enforced with knives, then exploded outward through migration routes, smuggling people, drugs, fear, and anti-trend. Former insiders who broke away, carving their own empire in the Bronx, Queens, and New Jersey, Illinois, and Washington State. Their world reeks of gun oil and cheap cologne, the low hum of encrypted WhatsApp chats, the metallic click of slides racking out on stolen firearms, and their business model was calculated cruelty. They smuggled young Venezuelan women and girls called motadas, the fined ones, across borders with promises of safety or work. Once they were here, the debt kicks in, pay it back through commercial sex, and refuse, you get threats, and they come fast and vivid. Guns pressed to their temples, threats of families back home named as the next targets, beatings on the regular that leave bruises, blooming purple across the ribs, kidnappings where the women were dragged into vans, and papers seized so escape means nothing. The air, in those cramped motel rooms or basement apartments is thick with fear and cigarette smoke, and the faint chemical bite of Tusi, that pink dyed drug cocktail that we've all heard about. It was a part of their daily ritual that it says in court records. But there was some home invasions in Yonkers, doors kicked in at 3 a.m., families zip-tied, screams muffled, gloves on their hands. They were robbing drug dealers in the Bronx for cash and turf. In October 2024, Jesus David Barrios Garcia, or Maracho, orders leg shots of two of their own as punishments. So bullets crackling through bone with wet thuds of bodies hitting the concrete. Screams echoing off the brick. In 2025, murder plot stretching to Florida hits planned in whispers over burner phones, and U.S. Attorney Jay Clayton's words still echo that Tren de Aragua is in the business of murder, sex trafficking, and intimidation, and that they brought that business to New York while being unlawfully present in the United States. Homeland Security Investigations and Joint Task Force, Vulcan, call it the fastest emerging transitional threat, ruthless, organized, thriving on chaos and human suffering, and the indictment piles on. Racketeering, conspiracy, murder in aid of racketeering, these are all very serious charges. Murder for hire, kidnapping, sex trafficking, 21 from earlier filings, 6 new, 5 already in cuffs, total around 38 penalties, life for the big ones, racketeering, murder. This case doesn't just shock, it invades the smell of fear in a trafficked woman's eyes, the metallic echo of gunfire in the Bronx alley, and the low thrum of dread in the neighborhoods where shadows move wrong, and it's imported terror preying on the vulnerable, turning American streets into extensions of what was once their prison yard rules. If you see it, it's hard to get away from, and I pray for all the women involved in this case. Silence lets it spread. So we've talked about Through the Flames tonight, the ghost cattle on Texas plains, the stolen keys opening mailboxes in Miami, the phantom deliveries lighting up San Jose servers, and the blood on Bronx pavement. Crime adapts, justice hunts. I'm Christian Whitlow. Thanks for staying through the heat. Keep your eyes open. Stay dangerous. I'll see y'all on the next one.